Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Community Connection. It's one of my favorite times of the month because we get favorite time of the week. Man, let's start that over again. But anyway, what I like about Thursday mornings is that we get to interview
You get to see me a lot.
Well, I haven't got to see you in 2 weeks, so
true.
welcome back,
Well,
Claudia.
you've seen me, but just not here in this
For those of you who don't know, she's usually our guest. She's usually our host, but we've had a number of guest hosts because she likes to just go around the country doing amazing things and then come back and tease me.
Yeah, poor thing.
Yes, poor thing. Thank you. But it is good to have you back.
Thanks.
Where did you just come from?
Well, last week I was sitting down in my office, but because I was sitting in my office because we felt like Nicolette would be a better co-host.
That's right.
To talk about safe families. But the week before I was at the Christian Community Development Association conference in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks before that, I was in Oklahoma City at the Christian Alliance for Orphans conference and the Care Portal Leadership meeting. So, and 2 weeks before that, I was in Williamsburg. So,
yeah,
I am gallivanting.
You are gallivanting because you normally are galvanizing, and sometimes you gallivant.
I knew that somehow that was going to come out of your mouth in some way.
So, why don't you introduce us to our guests this morning?
So we're super excited today that we've had a vacancy on our team for about 3 months, and we're very excited that we have hired Christina Steele to be our new volunteer coordinator. And Christina has a lot of good experience and good ideas to share, and so we're going to learn a little bit about her today. So welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Christina's a little excited and a little, what's the right word? Not nervous, but...
I don't know the word. I don't know.
Not feeling 100% comfortable with this.
Yes, that is accurate.
That's it. Okay.
Yes.
But you'll get comfortable. So tell us just a little bit about you, who you are, and your history from birth till now in
Of course.
From birth till now.
3 to 4 minutes.
Try to do that. Yes,
I
under
can
4
do
minutes.
that. I'm young. I got it. Let's see. So before here, I worked at the Charlottesville Free Clinic as a volunteer coordinator. It was really exciting and engaging. And before there, I worked in healthcare with nursing, in hospitals, nursing homes, those kinds of places. And then when I worked at the Charlottesville Free Clinic, I got to work with a lot of different community members, college students, working professionals, retired professionals, really kind of seeing the back end of how people get services. At the Charlottesville Free Clinic, they're all about creating an open door to healthcare, and it's free services, but I never knew how that worked, and I never realized how important volunteers were in that process of, getting patients the care that they needed. But it really opened my mind to the nonprofit space and how rewarding it can be and is to work in. And so after my experience there, I saw an opportunity here, and it looked really exciting and engaging, and so I wanted to be a part. So, yeah.
So birth till now, you skipped a lot of years.
I did.
So let's hear where you're from and a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So I'm from New York State originally. And about 7-8 years ago, my parents heard the call to move to Lynchburg. My mom at the time was doing her intensive at Liberty Online. She came down here. She was like, I think the Lord's calling us here to be pastors. And I was like, okay, whatever. I was in college, so. But after that, went back up north. Her and my father prayed, came back down, and literally a few months later, we moved down here. And they've been down here ever since. We've been down here ever since. And so I finished my degree at Liberty. And, then I worked at Centra and UVA and another nursing home. And, does that...
Yeah, that was
far back enough.
I said from birth till now, and you started like 2 years or 3 years ago. So
well, I thought like birth till now, like you were being facetious. I didn't know you actually meant birth. Like
no.
Or she wasn't taking you serious.
Yeah. Nobody ever does. So I'm interested. You've been here a week, right?
Week and a half.
Yes.
Technically.
And so you've been like drinking from a fire hose with all the information about all the things that we do. But when you first heard about what we do. What is it about this space? Then, like, what is your why for wanting to get involved in what we do?
I think one thing that's really important to me, which obviously this organization epitomizes, is service. I think we best exemplify the love of Christ when we serve others. And apparently, that's my working genius anyway, is service. So I didn't realize that was such a huge draw, but that's my why, is I want to support people do whatever it is that they need to do, whatever they're passionate about. And as a volunteer coordinator in this space, my role obviously would be to get these volunteers so that they can support the Patrick Henry Family Services and what we do here. So that's my why, is I actually just enjoy watching other people succeed and win, and I love serving others. That's like really what I enjoy doing. I know people say that and they don't really mean it, but I really mean that. I really enjoy that. And so I'm excited to do that here.
There's a scripture I've been feeding on for a long time. It's that part where it talks about the leadership of the church, right? The pastor, the apostle, the prophet, etc. And that their role was to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. I can't think of a clearer position other than a volunteer coordinator that says, let me help the saints do the work of the ministry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's like a good point, because I always think, and my prayer is always like humility, like this isn't about, us, the staff, being seen in terms of heroes or all that. It's really about the people that we serve, the children and the families that we serve, and kind of getting these volunteers kind of mobilized and equipped, like you were saying, to support those families is really the priority. So I think that's a really good point. Like, equipping is really it is a part of leadership, servant leadership, and I love that idea of taking the focus off self and kind of putting it on to ministry and like what our objective is.
Yeah, because volunteer coordination isn't just about recruiting volunteers. You really have to be able to help them see that they can fill this space, they can meet this need. And if there's something that they're lacking in terms of confidence or resources or knowledge, right? That's also part of your role,
It's
right?
a big part. I think relationship building is pretty much like 90% of volunteer coordinating, and then 10% is organization, in my opinion. Because if you can't build relationships, you're not going to have volunteers to organize, right? And I think that's a good point of a lot of the times, the idea, a lot of our volunteers are students, and they are, undergraduate, sometimes graduate or different levels of education, but they may not already know what their skills and their strengths are. And it is part of my job as a volunteer coordinator, and obviously, whatever department or team they're with, to kind of cultivate those skills, to show them you do have leadership capabilities, you can do administrative things, you can talk to people. It's really funny, we were just talking about generational differences. And my last job, I did a survey amongst our volunteers to see. It was like just a silly survey I did, and it was like, would you rather do phone call, text message, or like don't talk to me at all for communication? That was the three options, and overwhelmingly it was text message. But then we were just talking, and we don't even get text message answers sometimes, and so it's just funny. But translating that to service, a lot of the times, people may not be familiar with how to talk on the phone. And so they're nervous about talking with families or, talking with clients about different things. And so saying, this is how you do that. Let's develop some skills, some social skills that we can use that will translate not only here, but when you leave the, college and go to the workplace. And, it's a simple example, but things like that are even just pouring into these volunteers. Like one thing I really enjoy about what I do is I have the opportunity to pour into volunteers and talk to them about their goals and talk to them about why they want to volunteer, and really get a sense of who they are. And not only does that help with that relationship building, but it also helps with placement. Sometimes you get to know someone and they think they're interested in this, but after you speak to them, they might have a heart for something else, and that might be a better fit within the organization to best utilize their skills and talents. So, yeah.
in talking about relationships, I think that's, we talk about meaningful relationships all the time. It's our secret
Yeah.
sauce to getting this done. But I do think that we are experiencing maybe in this post-pandemic world, or whatever we want to call it, because it really isn't post, right? People are still getting COVID all the time. But in this world, when you combine that with all the technology opportunities that are out there, that this idea of how to build a meaningful relationship, we're losing that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that we need to model it as a staff. We need to model it as leaders in Vision 30. If we're going to expect people to build relationships, we have to be in relationship with one another.
Yeah.
And it's almost as though even nonprofits are starting to process people to serve them, as opposed to engage meaningfully with them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of my current soapboxes, is how do we really involve ourselves in meaningful relationships to model that, and then how do we teach that?
Yeah.
Because people are losing the skill. They're just they're not having to use it because they can get by without. I mean, remember when we used to drive somewhere to have a meeting?
Yeah.
Like 4 years ago, we used to get in the car.
It wasn't even that long
And we
ago.
used to drive somewhere, and we used to sit over a meal, or we used to sit in a meeting together.
Yeah.
And now, sometimes people over in Vista Park meet with me virtually.
Yeah.
Because they have
They're
to
a mile away.
They're a mile away, but they're gonna have to get in their car. We've learned that it's just easier to do it that way. I heard someone saying that DSSs are still, some of them are doing their family partnership meetings via Zoom, and the families are not getting served
Right.
well, because some of them don't have cameras, so they're on their phones, and it's a bunch of professionals that are all on camera when the family's not.
Yeah.
So we're missing it
Yeah.
when we think that we can use a substitute for relationships that are in person.
Yeah, I think maybe like one reason why that is because of convenience, right? Like building meaningful relationships, building any kind of meaningful relationship requires like sacrifice. And when we are like so hesitant to inconvenience ourselves, then that's when we lose that opportunity to create those meaningful relationships. And that's a very difficult, I think, thing, especially as overall, but as a country, like we're built on convenience, right? And so this idea, it wasn't convenient for, Jesus to die on the cross for our sins. It wasn't a convenient thing. He actually asked before he did if he had to do it.
Right.
So I think, making sure like we model that idea of sacrifice, and then really finding out like what it is, how can we best serve that other person, whatever organization, whatever that is. And I think to your point, even about organizations kind of getting this desire to like rapidly onboard all these volunteers, I understand like why, because the first thinking is, all right, like we need volunteers, we need help, we can't do this without volunteers. But then you will have that high turnover rate, you'll have that high time is not being used efficiently, labor is not being used efficiently. But if we focus our attention on not only recruitment but retention, I think we'll begin to see a more lasting relationships and more meaningful relationships with our volunteers, and in turn in our community, because we'll become established and respected. Not we, or nonprofit organizations as a whole.
Made me think something when you just said, the sacrifice that Jesus had.
Yeah.
The real sacrifice was that he had to bring people along with him, right? Jesus could have just spoke to the crowds.
Right.
He could have done the evangelist thing and teach, right? And so there were people there, but they could have always been at distance. And then he goes he does the sacrifice for our sins. The sacrifice is he had to bring a group of people who were very different from each other, who weren't getting it for the longest time, right? To me, from my personality, that was the sacrifice. Really having meaningful relationships with a group of people who were volunteers.
Right.
And that they then would model his sacrifice with their own lives later.
Yeah.
But taking them through that journey. Right. Oh, he was the greatest volunteer coordinator of all time. In terms of, he recruited volunteers.
Even his recruitment style, he just said, come follow me, I'll show you to be fishers of men.
They did it. Hey, this is a good time for our commercial, and our ambassador to Boomers, our Gen Z ambassador to the Boomers, the Melvinator. I saw Instagram video. And I thought, I was just so impressed with that. I wanted to show that here. So, Liam, let's see the Melvinator and her wise words of wisdom.
Something that working at Patrick Henry Family Services has made me aware of is that change can't really happen until standards change. And something that this nonprofit specifically focuses on a lot is loving people to a higher standard. Now, we have no interest in seeing someone who's struggling and getting to know them for the sake of pointing out everything that they've done wrong and then leaving them to fix it on their own. In many ways, that's already what the systems that have been put in place to support them have already told them. There is a significant difference between holding someone to a higher standard when they don't have the resources to hold themselves to that standard and supporting them to that higher standard. So what we aim to do at Patrick Henry is to come alongside a family or a parent or a child themselves and show them a new standard that they can set for themselves and teach them how to set goals and meet them, starting from the most minute little things, and that can translate into getting their family back together and healing generation after generation. This can't happen if our love for our clients isn't centered in loving them to a higher standard. You know, I personally believe that in any kind of relationship, one of the best ways to love someone is to show them their potential, to show them who they can be, and to want more for themselves. And so I think, you know, high standards can sound elitist or uppity or whatever you want to say, but people need to know that they can do better and they can be better. And, you know, sometimes the reasons that people aren't better aren't their fault, but there will always be something that that person can do about it. And so that's what we try to do. We try to make people better by loving them and being in relationship with them and support them into who they could always be.
Hey, Taylor the Melvinator, pop on here for a second.
Hello.
Hello. Got a lot of wisdom from a Gen Zer right there.
Hey, we can do it. It's possible.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for sharing that, and appreciate all the work that you're doing on social media and the content writing you're doing for the Order. So glad that you're on the team. So, Claudia, loving them to a higher standard, right?
That's what she said.
That's what she said. So, she talked primarily in the terms of the context of those that we serve.
Right.
But good volunteer coordination, right, would be loving our own volunteers,
Yeah.
right, to a higher standard, calling them to a higher standard.
Yeah.
That there's something in being a volunteer,
Yeah.
stepping in that space that is calling them to higher standards. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I think so. A higher
Yeah.
standard of sacrifice and a higher standard of compassion, right? Like these are people who, you know, they may not have experience with what a lot of our clients are going through, a lot of our families are going through, and kind of it's requiring them to step outside of themselves, outside of their life experiences, and to look at things with a different perspective. And I think that's, you know, volunteering in general. I think that's such an awesome part about it is you at first you think, okay, this volunteer is donating their time or their resources and it's benefiting whoever, but really it's benefiting the volunteer because it's really causing them to elevate themselves in a way, not like they're becoming puffed up, but in a way of their perspective is changing. That the things that they experience in their life, you know, the things that they go through in their life, it all has more deeper meaning and it means more. And I also love the idea of inspiring, you know, people who may not feel that they have a lot to give, that they do actually have something to give, even if it's not a skill like being, you know, a social worker or a doctor or something. Your life experience matters, and what you do matters, and what you've experienced can help someone. It may not be in a traditional sense, but maybe in an unusual sense. Maybe you are a stay-at-home mom and haven't worked, but you still want to volunteer. Well, we have mothers who need mentors. We have young people who could use your wisdom. If you're a college student, maybe you haven't had a lot of administrative experience, but you're great with, I don't know, like if you're an
Texting.
Texting. Social media,
Exactly.
Awareness. A lot of nonprofit organizations have visibility things. So like having that skill is important. And, just the willingness to think outside of the box and kind of think uniquely about ways that we can use these skills that we, brush off, but they're actually useful in the nonprofit space and towards helping people.
I think one of the challenges for any nonprofit that relies on volunteers, and we always talk about we want to be volunteer driven and professionally supported, but we can easily fall into seeing volunteers as a way for us to get things done, where we need to turn the script and say, what will this do for the volunteer, right? It goes back to the disciples again.
Yeah.
How many of them probably sit around going, look what we're doing for Jesus.
Right.
It was what Jesus was doing for them, and allowing them to be in that space changed them, right?
Yeah, it did.
So it
comes-
really, go ahead.
It comes back to the sentence of a person can tell how you feel about them, or I'm messing it up. The idea is when we have a conversation with people, they're going to be able to tell if we want something from them or we want something for them.
Yep.
And whenever I'm trying to get people involved in this space, it's always because I know of what will happen to them if they get involved, if they inconvenience themselves, if they get out of their comfort zone. And I'm going to tell you something you may not know yet, but each of our employees at Patrick Henry gets 8 hours a quarter to volunteer, and we don't use up those hours, right? I have a choice of whether and maybe it's because there's so much work they can't get it done, but still, it's the idea I could get paid to go out of my comfort zone and do something, and I'm still choosing not to, even if we're paying it. And I really think we need to get to the point where we're modeling for the community what it means to step out of our comfort zone and do something that is inconvenient, that we don't feel like doing. And I've told many stories of when I'm at a crossroads, when somebody needs something, and I'd rather, watch the next episode of whatever on Netflix, or I'd rather, do whatever it is I have planned for the day, to really asking myself, do I have a really good excuse, or is it just that I'm comfortable right now and I don't want to do it? And then forcing myself, and then every single time when I'm done doing whatever it was, I ask myself, would have you had a better time sitting in front of the TV? And the answer is always no. This was way better.
Yeah.
And so then that's a reminder to myself the next time I'm having that internal debate. Do I go volunteer, or do I do the comfortable thing? Well, last time you chose to do the uncomfortable thing, awesome things happened, so maybe you should do it again.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. But I loved you were talking about how we can empower volunteers, and I think that's such a good point too. And I think even to the whole inconveniencing yourself part of that is like, that is something I think in terms of recruitment that is really important. And I think sometimes nonprofits forget that, like, they're not free labor.
Right.
They do have something to contribute and something to give, and we should be able to offer them something. Obviously, it's not money, so what can we offer them that makes it worth their time? Because as much as I would love to say that we could all inconvenience ourselves and all these things, the reality is if we don't have some kind of exchange, it's going to be very difficult to get volunteers. I wish they were all like you, Claudia. I really do. It would be so much easier to recruit. But so I think that's another opportunity for us to kind of think about ways that we as the staff can create these ways for volunteers to benefit from us. One exciting thing that we have going on right now is we're developing our internship program. And I am working with some staff members to kind of create a leadership program within that. And that curriculum is going to be used to help our new interns when they come on board. They'll have something to kind of, every month we'll check in with them and teach them new material. And at the end, they'll be able to earn a certificate saying
Beautiful.
that they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the works.
Yeah, no, it's a
So
great idea.
just ideas, and that's utilizing different team members to kind of create these lesson plans, and so that will help us kind of give these volunteers, interns who are really volunteers, some type of tangible benefit. So that's just an example of something that we're working with, and that is a free thing that we're doing. There's no money involved. There's none of that. And so I think, kind of being able to look outside the box and look for unique ways that we can add benefit to the volunteer experience is just really important towards retention.
And when you said you wish they were all like me, you don't. But part of what
I agree with that. Amen.
But part of it, though, I think is just a pattern over years because I'm getting older and I've done this enough times that I know what the pattern is, right? But I was looking back and I was talking to a group the other day saying that there's 3 kinds of people. There's the kind of people who take kids to church, grow up in families that do that. There's the ones who need rides to church. And then there's the ones in the middle who are neither. They're not doing anything in their community. They don't need anything from their community. And they're focused on their own selves. And that was me from 18 to 28. I never saw God do anything amazing in those 10 years. I had a lot of fun, made a lot of friends, played a lot of rook. But that was when in a Christian school where you couldn't use face cards back then. They were of the devil.
Face cards?
Yeah, sorry, but it's true. It's
What
a
is a
fact.
face card?
Yeah, well,
Regular playing cards.
Oh, with
like-
the faces on the...
Yeah,
okay.
face cards.
Okay.
And so, but I did all those things, but I didn't see God. God only shows up in those spaces where you're out of your comfort zone, and you see that. And I sold everything, moved to Mexico, and then from then on, my whole life has been about doing things outside my comfort zone, recognizing what I gain from it. And so, some of that is just patterns, and we need a community that's ready to develop those patterns of doing that, so that they can see the reward for them.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of value to them just in doing that and seeing God do cool stuff.
Yeah. That's usually how it works.
So when I was in college, we a group of college students, we created a program that built houses for the poor.
I read that in your book.
Yeah, and one of the ways that we were able to pay for it is that youth groups would raise money through the year and then come on a mission trip for the summer, and the money they raised paid for the materials that would build the house. And at the end of the week, we'd always have a service. And these kids who would come from like the suburbs and middle class, and in the beginning of the week didn't want their shoes to get muddy and all that kind of stuff. By the end, they were crying and just saying, "I got so much more out of this than I gave." And so I was always reminded that there were 2 groups of people we were touching: the folks who were being ministered to by getting a new house, and the people who had stepped out of their world to go into the mountains of Appalachia, and they were forever changed. That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That benefit that they don't realize that they get from volunteering. Yeah.
So as we wrap up, how does one become a volunteer at Patrick Henry Family Services? And I may add that we are willing to help anybody get connected with any agency or nonprofit in this
Yes,
community,
any Vision
right?
30 partner,
If they have
yes.
some skills that don't necessarily match here,
Yeah.
we will match them,
Yeah.
particularly with any of our Vision 30 partners. Is that right?
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
So what does a person who might hear this today and say, I'd like to be a volunteer, what do they need to do?
So she's new, so
Yes. I just put her on the spot, didn't
Yeah. So what you can do is you can call 1-300-HOPE. That's the easy way to remember it. And ask for Christina Steele, the volunteer coordinator, and they'll connect her directly to you. On our website, there's a place where you can get involved and fill out a form there. You can come to our monthly gatherings that are the 4th Wednesday, where our Vision 30 partners all get together and hear what some of their...
Nobody gets to choose.
About any way you can get in touch with us, you can
Yeah.
Yeah.
get involved, and we'll hook you up with Christina, who will do all the things she just promised
Yes.
for you.
I will do those things. I am very excited to do those things for you. Yes.
Well, we're really excited that you're part of
Yeah.
the team.
Yeah.
I know good things are going to happen.
Yes. I'm excited.
God is in this space.
Yeah.
So if you want to be in this space and help us and us help you experience God in some really cool ways, just give us a call, 1-300-HOPE, and we'll help you get connected. Thanks for joining us today on Community Connection. We'll see you next Thursday.
Nobody gets to choose their family. If a person is fortunate enough to be born into a healthy family, then life can be much like floating down a smooth, gentle river in the summertime. But an unhealthy family is like a dangerous river, filled with rocks, debris, and fast-moving water. This river swiftly leads to the steep waterfall of adulthood, tragically forming a new river of dysfunction. Even if you aren't born into an unhealthy river, there are many streams that cause a person to get there. But there is only one way to get out, and that is through a meaningful relationship. Across our region, there are many agencies, churches, and families who are devoted to helping children escape from unhealthy rivers. Some feel their role is to wade in and rescue children. They foster, adopt, or provide safe families. Others stand by the river and support the rescuers by providing what they need. Still, others are upstream and stand in the gap to keep children from ending up in the negative situations. At Patrick Henry Family Services, we see ourselves as having an additional role. We are running up and down the shores of the unhealthy river, screaming, "Can't you see the children in the water? You have to do something." Vision 30 is a 10-year initiative. By 2030, we envision a region where all children are safe in their own family, or with caregivers who are supported by a local faith community. So, where do you stand at the river? Are you upstream, keeping families together and strong by standing in the gap? Are you in the river, directly impacting children? Are you on the shore, providing support for the brave folks who have entered the river? Or are you just passing by without noticing? No matter who you are, come down to the river with us. Let us help you find your place. Not only will lives be changed, but you will never be the same.